My name is Abiodun Ayobali. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers of this workshop for the invite. I'm very honored to be here sharing this very insightful and timely topic with everyone. And yeah, particularly in this period of time when the word sustainability is becoming a thing to use when politicians want to campaign. And I think it's very important to keep this conversation going. So secondly, I would like to thank my co-author, my supervisor, and also my mentor who guided me all through this research. And today I decided to integrate the scientific report into more like a social problem, since we're actually studying a social problem. And I've timed my talk analyzing wicked problems in Central America. But we're going to be focusing on La Barra de Santiago, which was my main study area. And yep. Now, this is my outline, and I welcome everyone to come on board as we cruise through this presentation. And I would like to mention that this was also the boat that I used while I was in the field in El Salvador. Now, yeah, so like I said, initially, I did try to look at this problem from a social point of view rather than the traditional way of looking at it like a scientist, because basically it is a social problem and everyone has a role to play. And I use the word wicked problems as it meets up with the criteria that is required to characterize an issue, a wicked problem. And the term wicked doesn't mean wicked, but it means a problem that is so resistant to resolution. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, we have characteristics that has been identified or itemized by these two researchers, Retail and Albert, talking about what can be categorized as wicked problem. And when we look at each and every one of these characteristics, we'll find out that the problem which we are about to discuss in this presentation falls under this category. And as we go on in the slide, you would see why I use the term. Now, like I said, characteristics of wicked problems, and as it has been outlined on the slide, we could see that we have so many ideological constraints. For example, when it comes to climate change, we have ideological constraints, we have political constraints, and when we look in depth, we'll also find that the stakeholders that are involved in this field, they find it difficult to agree on one thing. You find the government willing to increase productivity and ensure food security, and thereby they need to use more fertilizer, and the farmers need to produce more. But also the fishermen needs to make, catch more fishes, but the pollution from the, the pesticide and herbicide would run down their business. You see that so many back and forth between all stakeholders involved in this field. Now, examples of wicked problems, and time will not permit us to look through individual of these things that I've listed. And trust me, you'll find that all these are wicked problems that require so much back and forth solution. There's never one solution to this problem. We have climate change, and you can see where people that are into fossil fuel and those that are pushing for the green economy, you see that there's always back and forth, particularly in the state, in country like the Western world, like the United States, where you have different opinion about this. You talk about waste and social justice, environmental pollution, which is our main topic for this presentation. So I've listed this, and now we're talking about wicked problems that are prevalent in Central America. Now, when you look at this slide, I have two figures, and on the left side of my screen, I have the natural disasters, which are examples of wicked problems that we can that we observe. And this is due to the geographic location of the continent, and it made the world's highest rate of natural, geological, hydrometeorological, and geodynamic hazards, which are reflected in all that I've listed, reflected in tropical storms, hurricanes, floods, and the list goes on. And on the right-hand side, we could see the man at the center, which signifies anthropogenically derived waste or issues. Let me put it that way, or issues. As you can see, climate change, you can't talk about climate change without talking about human input and talking about water pollution, despite some are geogenic, while most of the ones that we witness are man-made. And when you look at the bottom of that image, you'll find man is also the one bearing the burden. And as you have the case of public health issues and the issue of chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology, like we have in some part of Latin America. So these are examples of environmental pollution, talked about man activities that has led to degradation of environmental phases, particularly in Central America and also around the world. We have herbicides and mining, which has led to acid mine drainage, and also the indiscriminate use of fertilizer and pesticide amongst sugarcane farmers in Central America, and also waste management, which have been major concern. Now, I try to like tailor my talk with respect to this workshop, and water security and environmental toxicology cannot be separated because one depends on the other. Now, these two terms are inseparable, but most importantly, water security depends on environmental toxicology. Now, when you have we have water, which is never enough, and when it comes to water, we talk about quality and quantity. Now we have this figure shows we have quantity but less quality, right? Which is, it means it's polluted. Now we also have on the other side, we have quality but not enough, right? And in between quantity and quality, it's like a wide cat chase. All over the world, we have people struggling to achieve that quality. Now, so I try to narrow it down to my case study. Now, Barra de Santiago, as you can see, is located in the western side of El Salvador. It's a very nice place. I've been there, and the beauty alone reminds me of, of home. And one thing that is very important about this region is it is well known for its aquatic richness, and also people in this locality depends on this for their livelihood. We're talking about fishing and talking about transportation and every other thing. Now, but like every other area in El Salvador, this area has been subjected to environmental degradation, which is as a result of extensive land clearing for sugarcane, agricultural, and all other activities, and also waste release from factories. Like I said previously, it's located in the western side of the country, and you can see from the map showing Barra de Santiago and its adjacent rivers. Now, geologically, El Salvador is located on the Caribbean plate, and this is one of the most seismologically active region on Earth. And El Salvador houses about 20 potentially active volcanoes, right? And this region is an area of subduction, meaning that you have the Cocos Plate pushing towards the Caribbean Plate, and both moving together will lead to so many seismologic activities in this area. And geologically speaking, the rocks in this area are young in terms of geologic age. And yeah. And one other thing that I need to highlight in this presentation is the importance of and the location of the Santa volcano, which is the highest volcano in El Salvador, right? Now, it happened that on October 2005, this volcano erupted, and the last time it erupted was in 1904. And shortly after the eruption, it was followed by an hurricane called Oricostan, which lasted for 10 days. And during this eruptive event, we have volcanic ash and with so many other chemicals which were released into the atmosphere and also into the environment. And when we look at the the step of event, we find that after the eruptive event, we have hurricane that washed down these substances into the adjacent rivers, thereby ending up in the ocean. And I will show you the location when I talk about this area. Now, so why this area became of interest to us was because of, after this event, the people in this area noticed a decrease in the macroinvertebrate population, and also there's an increase also in the use of agrochemicals, which can also be traced to when you have decrease of aquatic organisms. Then people have no other option than to move to farming. And then during this period, there's also, like I said, during the public health issue, I talked about the chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology that has been noticed in adjacent places in El Salvador and also in Latin America. So we came up with an hypothesis and trying to explain for what has caused these problems in this area. We hypothesized that the lack of macroinvertebrates in the estuary and the prevalence of CNAC, as it has been coined, in the human population could be caused by nutrients, which can be hypernutrients, or the influx of heavy metal into environmental phases, which thereby ends up in a living organism and also in man, which are known to be responsible for this kind of diseases and also this kind of occurrence. And also hypothesized that the possible sources of the heavy metals could be from the volcanic ash, which the event I've also discussed earlier, or basically from agrochemical runoffs from nearby sugarcane plantations. So we set out with so many objectives, and time will not permit me to itemize everything, but we were more interested in assessing heavy metal contamination in all the environmental phases, which includes water, bottom sediments, and also soils from adjacent farms. And then we also try to quantify the concentration of nutrients, particularly in the estuary and also in the adjacent rivers as well. Now, this is the map showing the areas that were sampled. And as you can see, we have 3 sample points in the estuary, which includes El Cajete, El Zapatero, sorry, and Barra de Santiago. And also on the upper part, we took soil samples from Guayapa, a farm in Guayapa, and also took river samples from adjacent rivers Culapa, Linde Channel, El Naranjo, and River Guayapa. And I would like to mention at this point that River Culapa, we were unable to obtain sediment sample, bottom sediment sample from that point. Now, I was in El Salvador in May 2018 to obtain those samples myself, and as you can see in this slide, that was the same boat we found on the outline slides. Obtaining those samples, the sediment samples and the soil samples were analyzed for grain size. Also, we carried out the organic matter content using the loss on ignition method. And also we digested these samples, the sediment and soil samples, using the several methods. We used the EPA latchet method to obtain the nitrate, using the Melich extraction method to get phosphate, and we just were basically used to categorize the nutrients. And then we use the photospectrometer, which is the arch method to obtain this results, while the other samples were digested using the EPA digestive method to obtain the cations, which includes heavy metals, and using ICP-MS. Now for the water samples, so one thing I haven't mentioned is we did take some field parameters, which include the dissolved oxygen, ORP. We did take the field parameters that can be used to quantify the quality of this water. And also in the lab, we did carry out alkalinity, did the same ARCH method to characterize the nutrient concentration and also sulfates in the water sample. And while the water samples were sent to Ohio State University for cation analysis using ICP-MS. Now, one thing I'd like to mention is, as you can see, from the sampling point, we took samples from the estuary and also from the rivers. And we did encounter some issues trying to quantify the nitrate, which was a result of the interference of chloride. So we decided to do a calibration curve. And the result we obtained from all this analysis were analyzed using multivariate statistical analysis. And also we did carry out some sediment quality assessment using certain indices and pollution indices as well. And we also use maps and scatter maps to display our results. Now for the multivariate statistical analysis, we use the principal component analysis and also correlation analysis, which involves both the parametric test and a non-parametric test, just to confirm what our principal component analysis results yielded. Now, remember I talked about obtaining field parameters. As you can see to the upper left, I have my dissolved oxygen and pH levels. And from left to right on the graph shows from the estuary to the river. And we could see when we look at this plot, we'll find out that there's really this gradient as we move from one ecosystem to the other. Although we didn't sample from the ocean, but we did take the estuary, which is an interface between land and the ocean. And it is interesting to see what happens, which basically is expected on the right, on the bottom right graph, which contains the electrical conductivity and total dissolved solids. And you could see amazingly this progression as we move from El Cajete, which is the mouth of the estuary, to the inland rivers. Now for the PC analysis, I won't bore you with too much information, but I will try to zoom in into the correlation loading. And this expanded version of the correlation loading helps us to see association, which could help us to understand the relationship between the constituent that we have measured in these samples. And I did forget to mention that we took samples of fertilizers, which was zinc sulfide. And it was interesting to see that none of the constituent we got from the samples did correlate with the fertilizers. And this is because we were unable to obtain the main fertilizer that the farmer used, because I could remember we tried to speak with the farmers, but they were not willing to give us a sample, right? Now, so as you can see on the left-hand side of this image, we have total dissolved solid, conductivity, temperature, sulfate, chloride. All these guys are in association with one another, meaning that these guys are basically from the same source and they depend on one another. And it's very important to see as temperature increases, conductivity will also increase. Likewise, chloride is also going to increase.